are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And we are back here on...
Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, and it's great to have you guys here on this Wednesday, April 3rd. We have a lot to talk about on the show today. Before I get into that, just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized, make sure to go to the following link. That is gsmcpodcast.net. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is gsmcpodcast.net. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker on the bottom of the show segment down below. So with that being said, let's get right into what we are going to talk about for today. So we're going to start off the show. We're going to talk about Deshaun Watson, him talking about his rehab on his podcast. So we'll get into that. Expectations for the Browns going into the 2024 season. Then in the second part of the show, we'll talk about the New York Jets once again, because, again, I've talked about them a lot recently, but I wanted to talk about Haason Reddick's comments on joining the Jets, as well as Mike Williams' recovery time as well. So we'll get into all that in the second part of the show. Then, third part of the show, talk about Tyler Boyd, a little bit more potential suitors for him. I know I talked about him yesterday when I did my Steelers segment, but also want to talk about him today as well. And then in the final part of the show, I'll talk about the Kansas City Chiefs, a couple of things with them. So they brought back Clyde Edwards-Helaire. J.K.Dobbins did visit them. He's still a free agent and could potentially, was potentially signing with the, I shouldn't say he was potentially going to sign with the Chiefs, but they were a potential suitor, and now he could be going elsewhere, just with now them bringing back Edwards-Helaire. Sorry, I worded that weirdly. But anyways, that's what we will get into in the final part of the show. So let's get into the first topic, which is talking about Deshaun Watson and what he had to say regarding his recovery. So last year, had a season-ending shoulder injury, got surgery. The Browns, they went through Joe Flacco, later in the season, but you had Dorian Thompson-Robinson starting. You had P.J. Walker starting, Joe Flacco, Jeff Driscoll. Well, Jeff Driscoll, they just brought in to start the final game of the regular season. But still, Browns went through a lot of starting quarterbacks last season, including Deshaun Watson. And they were able to make the playoffs. Kevin Stefanski won Coach of the Year. Give him a lot of credit, because that's definitely a situation that was very tough to navigate. And Joe Flacco for them was a revelation, bringing him in and how he played, got the Browns to the playoffs. Now, again, season didn't end great because the Texans blew him out, but give them a lot of credit for getting into the playoffs with the situation that they were dealing with throughout the season. But yeah, Deshaun Watson commented on his rehab. So, looking at an article from NFL.com that I believe has some quotes. So this is what he said. So he said the situation is good. He said this on his QB Unplugged podcast. Again, I've never heard of these podcasts. I didn't realize a lot of these players have podcasts. Because when you think of podcasts, obviously the Kelsey brothers, come to mind, because New Heights is just really taken off. But yeah, never really have heard of some of these podcasts that these players have. But anyways, so he said the situation is good. We're in a great spot, right where we need to be. We have plenty of time to ramp up the throwing sessions and things like that, but everything is going pretty smooth. As long as I'm feeling well and the doctors and physical therapists and everyone are on the same page, we're in a good spot. So, yeah, that's encouraging if you're a Browns fan to know that, the rehab is going well. But ultimately, Browns fans are worried about results. And how is that going to translate once Deshaun Watson is playing in meaningful games in September? And yeah, since he joined the Browns, it has not been great. It has not been great by any means. Now, he has shown flashes, but other than that, it's been pretty lackluster since he's joined the Browns. And the Browns invested so much in him, making that big trade with the Texans to get him. And that trade has kind of helped the Texans more than the Browns. And it was kind of poetic, I guess. I don't know if you want to call it poetic, that they made this trade. The Browns get Deshaun Watson, and the Texans, they're the team that knocks them out of the playoffs with their new quarterback, C.J. Stroud. But yeah, it really just for the Browns it hasn't panned out. And you see what Baker Mayfield's doing in Tampa. Maybe the Browns in the back of their minds are saying, maybe we should have held on to Baker. Because you got to remember, Baker in 2021 did not play well, but that's because he was playing with the shoulder injury himself. And they went in a different direction and brought in Deshaun Watson, and hasn't panned out because didn't play that much in 2022, 7 touchdowns to 5 interceptions, and then didn't play that much in 2023, 7 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. The turnovers have been an issue too, but you could just tell he's not the same player. And now he's coming back from another injury. After, again, having a long time of being out, because obviously he was out, missed the entire 2021 season for the whole off-the-field stuff that we don't have to get into, but you guys know what I'm talking about. Missed a whole season of that because of that. Comes back in 2022. Again, won some games for the Browns, but again, didn't look great, and didn't look great in 2023. So now he's coming off of a shoulder injury. Again, missed a lot of time. How is he going to perform? And to be honest, I think you kind of have to expect more of the same. The way his trajectory has been going. And the Browns have a solid team. They have a good defense, led by Myles Garrett. And then on the offensive side of the ball, you're hoping Nick Chubb comes back healthy. But look at the receiving core that they have. Again, it's not spectacular, but I think, it has potential to be good. Amari Cooper's been good for them. I know Jerry Jeudy has not been great since he's been drafted into the NFL, and I talked about this, and the Browns gave him a lot of money, even though it might not be worth it. But, again, I think he could be okay for them. And then you have Elijah Moore. You have David Njoku, who was a stud last season. And they have a solid offensive line. So the Browns have the pieces in place. It's just, it comes down to Deshaun Watson and his performance. And I don't think you're going to see the Deshaun Watson that we saw in Houston. And I think a lot of people are in agreement with that. And yeah, the last 2 seasons he's played in 6 games. Let's see if I can get the... Yeah, so these are his individual stats from 2023. So he went 16... Now, the Browns did beat the Bengals 24-3, but Watson only went 16-29, 154 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Then against the Steelers, 22-40, 235 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Against the Titans, he had a pretty good performance. 27-33, 289 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Was sacked 3 times. Was sacked 6 times against the Steelers. Colts only completed 1 pass. He got hurt in that game. Against the Cardinals, only went 9. I mean, they won 27-0, so he really didn't have to do that much. 19-30, 219 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Was sacked 1 time. And then against the Ravens, 20-34, 213 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Was sacked 4 times. And if you remember, I think he threw a pick 6 on the first play of the game. It was deflected up in the air, and Kyle Hamilton picked it off and ran it in for a pick 6. And that was the last game he played. And then after that, yeah, it's out for the year. And now here we are in the off season, and him talking about his recovery. So, again, the Browns have a good team, but ultimately what is going to probably hold them back is Deshaun Watson's level of play. Because I don't think you're going to see that quarterback from the Texans. I don't think you're going to see that. You're going to see more of what you saw before the injury. Now, does that mean that the Browns are going to be a really bad team because of it? No. Or have a bad record? I don't think so. The Browns are going to be in the mix. And if you have a healthy Nick Chubb and you could rely on that running game, that will also help. That'll take some pressure off of him. And maybe that's what you're going to have to run through the offense is the running game, is Nick Chubb. But, again, only time will tell. But, again, Deshaun Watson has shown flashes with the Browns. But it hasn't been that much. You see more bad than good. So, I'm not really expecting this bounce back season from him. I'm expecting more of what we've seen. Now, can I be wrong? Absolutely. And I'll be the first. And when we progress through the season next year and the Browns are one of the best teams in the NFL and Deshaun Watson is playing at an MVP level, then I will come out and say, yeah, I was wrong. But it's just, there's been no indication that he's going to be the Deshaun Watson from when he was with the Texans. Because when he was with the Texans, he was one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. And it's just all that time off. It really, I think that's really what it comes down to, is all that time off. That's really affected him in the long run. And now, again, a season-ending injury, that didn't help. You know, in the last 3 years now, he's played a combined 12 games. And the Browns, again, they traded for him, they gave up a lot to get him, and they signed him to that massive deal. So they kind of got their hands tied. You're stuck with this now. And they're probably regretting it, like I said. So they're going to have to deal with it. But again, at least from just his recovery aspect, that he's, like he said on his podcast, he's progressing well. So at least the Browns know we're going to have our starting quarterback week 1 of 2024. Now, there's a possibility that they could be that team that plays the Eagles week 1 in Brazil. But if not, it's going to be the Packers. So the Browns, they could be opening up at home. They could be opening up on the road. Who knows? Again, the schedule is going to come out next month. And once that happens, we're going to break down everything. Go through the team schedules and things like that. But first we got to get through the draft. So, got to see what the Browns end up doing. But, yeah, I mean, that's what's going to hold them back, is if Deshaun Watson does not play well, this team is not, don't expect this team to really, they could make the playoffs, but don't expect them to go far. That's ultimately what's going to hold them back. I mean, look what happened in the playoff game against the Texans. Again, Joe Flacco, loved that story. That was great to watch. You thought we were going to maybe see another run out of Joe Flacco, another January Joe, but that ended up not happening. And he threw 2 pick sixes. Now, again, the Browns' defense was getting shredded, but the 2 pick sixes that Flacco threw did not help. So, and Deshaun Watson, before he got hurt, was turning the ball over. So, I mean, we'll see what happens. If you guys have a different opinion on this, let me know in the comments. Because again, I think you're gonna see more of what you saw from Deshaun Watson. Before the injury, you're gonna see that. Now, again, the Browns were still winning games, but still, if the Browns are going to want to, be a part of that Super Bowl conversation, Deshaun Watson's going to have to play better. And I just don't think that's going to happen. Just, again, because of just the fact that he's played in 12 games combined over the last 3 years, counting 2021 where he didn't play at all. So it's my trajectory with him. It's going down. So, but again, if you have a different opinion, let me know. So when we come back from our first break of the show, I'm going to talk about the Jets some more. Talk about Haason Reddick, what he had to say about joining the Jets, as well as Mike Williams' recovery timeline. So we'll get into all that. Well, at least what Robert Saleh had to say regarding it. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows where 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits, some losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip, you choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we're going to talk about the Jets some more, a couple things regarding their new acquisitions this offseason. First, we'll talk about Haason Reddick, and then we'll also talk about Mike Williams as well. So Haason Reddick, they traded for from the Eagles or to replace Bryce Huff, who went to the Eagles, essentially. So it was kind of a flip-flop there, even though Bryce Huff signed with the Eagles and they traded for – you get what I'm saying. And we'll also talk about Mike Williams, who was the big acquisition on the offensive side of the ball. So this is what Haason Reddick had to say about joining the Jets. So he talked about how it's going to be fun. I don't think people are ready for what's going to happen. I believe I have a lot left in the tank. If I didn't, I wouldn't be here. That's pretty much that. And Haason Reddick started in all 34 games that he played with the Eagles, which is big. To hear that. I feel like when I don't have any more left to give, I'll retire. Until that point, I'm going to continue to try to play my best ball. As far as the Eagles go, though, it wasn't about what's left in the tank or anything like that. It's a business, and sometimes hard decisions have got to be made, even if you don't like them. A guy that has 58 career sacks. So, again, this was a good trade for the Jets. 2.5 of Reddick's 11 sacks last season came against the Jets, and the Eagles suffered their first loss to the Jets, which I still, at the time couldn't wrap my head around it, but then the Eagles collapsed, and then you were like, okay, well, now it kind of makes sense. But at the time, when the Eagles were 10-1, and you kept saying, their only losses to the Jets, like, it just doesn't make sense. But, and then he talked about the defense of the Jets. He said, we're going to make it all easier for each other, so the attack style, I'm all for it. I'm all about constantly putting quarterbacks under duress. With the group that we have, the front that we have, we should be able to do that really often. So, yeah, he's definitely excited to join this Jets defense, which was the strength of the team. There's no question about it. And if this team has a competent offense that could put up points, that's only going to make the defense better. Because, you maybe question the Jets' effort late in the season because it's just, we got no chance because of what we have going on at quarterback. Now, if you have a healthy Aaron Rodgers and this Jets offense is putting up points and Breece Hall's running the football effectively and Rodgers is getting the ball to Garrett Wilson and Mike Williams, who we're going to talk about as well, that's going to make the Jets defense better. And it's going to take the pressure off of them to, because they had to be perfect. Because the Jets offense just could not generate points. Now, Breece Hall, towards the end of the year, he was unbelievable. But, it just, again, the Jets, quarterback-wise, it was rough. It was rough. Breece Hall was doing his part, and Garrett Wilson was doing, the best he could with what he was given, but it just, again, the Jets offense, for Jet fans, you're hoping that you're getting better quarterback play in 2024, which, again, healthy Aaron Rodgers, you will. You will. Even if it's not the Aaron Rodgers that we're accustomed to seeing over the course of his career, if you get, because, again, he's 40 years old. If you're getting, and coming off of an Achilles injury, if you get anything, if you get a somewhat decent version of that quarterback, not the MVPs, the back-to-back MVPs, if you're getting something a little less than that, you'll take it. You'll take it. So Robert Saleh talked about Mike Williams' recovery, so we'll transition over to what was talked about with him. So he's got a long way to go in his recovery from the ACL injury. He was comparing the timeline to Breece Hall, who tore his ACL the previous season, not last year, but we knew that. Despite the challenges of the recovery process, Saleh expressed confidence that Williams will be ready for Week 1 if he follows the proper rehabilitation protocols. Saleh highlighted Breece Hall's remarkable recovery from a similar injury, noting that Hall had a standout performance in Week 1 of the 2023 season, despite concerns about his recovery timeline. Yeah, literally the first run of the game. The highlight of Aaron Rodgers' Jet career, well, other than him running out with the flag before the game, was the handoff to Breece Hall, which, when Breece Hall ran that football for however many yards it was, MetLife Stadium was going crazy. And Jet fans were going crazy. All over the place, because it was just like, wow, this feels different. And it ended in an instant a few plays later. Saleh did acknowledge, though, however, that the recovery timeline for Mike Williams, who's 29 years old, who's older than Breece Hall, might differ from that of a younger player like Hall. Williams sustained his ACL injury on September 24th, 2023, giving him more time for recovery compared to Breece Hall. The Jets management has emphasized the importance of not rushing Williams' recovery, with General Manager Joe Douglas stating that they don't expect him to be ready for the start of training camp. So he is going to miss some time. Well, he's got a long way to go, but he is going to miss some time going into next season. But when you're talking about training camp, preseason, things like that, we'll see if he even plays in the preseason. But at least from what they're saying, he will be ready. It seems like he'll be ready for Week 1. While the focus is on Williams being ready for Week 1, any additional preparation time before that would be beneficial, particularly for building chemistry with quarterback Aaron Rodgers. Saleh expressed optimism about Williams' potential contributions to the team once he completes his recovery process. So we'll see what happens. Again, I think this could be a good move for the Jets, but yeah, it could also be bad because, again, if he gets hurt again, you don't want to see that. But the Jets need another threat besides Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson needs some help there. And more help could be on the way through the draft because, again, I talked about how they could potentially go after, one of these receivers. It seemed, the ones that'll probably fall to them, it's probably either going to be Rome Odunze or Brian Thomas Jr. Again, from what I'm seeing, it seems like Marvin Harrison Jr. is probably going to be the first wide receiver taken off the board. Then it's going to be Malik Neighbors, and then it's going to be one of these two guys. again, could be wrong. Those guys end up getting traded, or team trades up and gets them before the Jets can pick. Well, we'll see. I don't know. I'm just throwing random things out there, but that's probably what they would end up with. And I think Rome Odunze actually went in to visit the Jets. So, and I know if he got drafted to the Jets, I know one of my friends who's a Jet fan would be ecstatic about it because that's his guy. And obviously my other Jet fan friends would be excited about it as well, but I just know he's a big Rome Odunze guy. So I know he'll be happy about that. If that ends up happening, because then they could also go the other way and trade and draft Brock Bowers. And my other friend who's a Jet fan is a big Brock Bowers guy. So I know he would be very happy about that as well. But again, they're all kind of, for the most part, just not very optimistic about this Jets season. Because it's just, that's how they're programmed now. Because you saw what happened in week 1 against the Bills. And they got in their minds, well, what if that happens again? So they can't even get excited. Like, you're improving the offensive line. You know, you get Mike Williams. And again, is Mike Williams like one of the best wide receivers in the NFL? No. But I think it's an upgrade over what they've had. Definitely an upgrade over, even with him getting hurt, I think he's an upgrade over the other wide receivers that they have on the team outside of, well, Garrett Wilson. Because Allen Lazard, they paid him all that money, and that did not pan out. Now, I think with Rodgers back in the fold, Lazard is going to be how he was in Green Bay. You're going to see that Allen Lazard. You're not going to see this Allen Lazard that just was a different player. Now, again, maybe I'm a little too positive on Allen Lazard, but I think Allen Lazard as a number 3, because that's what he is. You know, he's like a lower tier number 2, number 3 wide receiver. That's what he is. You know, at least in Green Bay, like when you had Devontae Adams on the opposite side, I mean, Lazard was a different player in Green Bay. But that was because you had a healthy Aaron Rodgers. When he gets hurt with the Jets, and you got Zach Wilson throwing you the ball, and Tim Boyle and Trevor Siemian, yeah, it's going to impact some people. And yeah, just but Lazard got criticism in other ways as well. I mean, he just in drops, and yeah, it was rough for Lazard. And I'm gonna say with Rodgers back, he's gonna have somewhat of a bounce back season. But again, he's not gonna be. You got other guys to throw to. I mean, you got Garrett Wilson, Mike Williams, if he's healthy. You know, you got competition there and getting targets. And then whatever wide receiver you bring in. So actually, yeah, I did just mention that. You know, if the Jets draft a receiver, well, Lazard kind of slides down the depth chart. Now, he probably ends up being that number 4 wide receiver. So, which, again, I go back to Green Bay saying he was like that lower tier number 2 and 3 wide receiver. Well, the way he was with the Jets, yeah, you could say, well, he's like that number 3, number 4. And that's what he might end up being. Because if they draft one of these receivers, like I said, Lazard's going to slide down the depth chart. So, but I think that might be what the Jets do. Because it doesn't, I think I saw, it doesn't seem like they're going to take, well, I didn't, not that I expected them, but they're not going to take a quarterback. So it's either you go offensive lineman or you go, you know, best player available. At least on the offensive side of the ball. It's going to be either a lineman or a playmaker. It's going to be one of those two things. And if you got one of those receivers sitting there or Brock Bowers sitting there, I think they're going to be inclined to take him. But I know that there's people out there that want the Jets to just take a lineman because, again, you got Tyron Smith who has dealt with a lot of injuries over the course of his career, and you want to have an insurance policy in case he gets hurt. But the Jets might say, you know what? Get another weapon for Rodgers. They have to go all in because who knows how long you're going to have Rodgers for. I mean, he says he wants to play multiple years. I mean, I covered that once on here, but again, I mean, who knows? But we'll see what happens. But yeah, I think that's what's going to end up happening. They're either going to take a lineman or they're going to take a playmaker, but I would lean more towards them taking another playmaker. Because there's going to be somebody there that they're going to want to pick. One of these top receivers or Brock Bowers. It's going to be one of those guys. So we'll see what ends up happening. And maybe I'm wrong, but that's I kind of see that's where the Jets are going to end up going. Is they're going to draft a playmaker with their first pick, because again they addressed a lot of things in free agency. The offensive line they addressed. They did bring in Mike Williams, but I think they're going to want to add another receiver. The defense, I mean, is loaded. I mean, maybe they shock us and go with a defensive player. I don't know, but I think what they're going to do is they're going to draft a playmaker on offense with that pick. But let me know what you guys think about that. Before we go to break now, second break, just want to remind you guys once again, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized, make sure to go to the following link. That is GSMCPodcast.net. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is GSMCPodcast.net. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker on the bottom of the show segment down below. So, when we come back from our second break of the show, we will talk about Tyler Boyd. Speaking of wide receivers, we'll talk about Tyler Boyd some more. Potential landing spots for him. And that is what we will do when we come back from our second break of the show. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
And we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we're going to talk about Tyler Boyd and potential landing spots for him. I know I've talked about him a decent amount. Talked about him yesterday with the Steelers. Also, I was talking about the remaining free agents, where some landing spots for him. So there are some teams besides the Steelers that do have interest. And according to the Athletics, hope I pronounce his name correctly, Mark Caboli, I think that's how you pronounce it. Hopefully I didn't butcher it. But according to him, the Chiefs, 49ers, Dolphins, Chargers, and Lions have preliminary interest in Boyd. And according to him as well, the Steelers are considered a long shot to land Boyd. So I just spent like a whole, well, not a whole set. Well, actually, yeah, I did talk about it because I know I talked about it, a couple things with the Steelers, but that was what I talked about for most of that segment, was Tyler Boyd maybe going to the Steelers and it making sense. But I did also talk about Kenny Pickett and, things regarding that. But the Steelers have a long shot. And you got these other teams, the Chiefs, 49ers, Dolphins, Chargers, Lions. I mean, I think some of those teams are definitely better landing spots than the Steelers. I mean, if the Chiefs want to bring him in, I think maybe he goes there. Especially because of what's going on with Rashee Rice. I know I touched upon that yesterday, but if, things go down a certain path and the Chiefs, he's not a part of the Chiefs anymore, then that opens up a spot for another receiver, and that could be Tyler Boyd. The 49ers is interesting because I mean, do you want to do that? Because you're already working on. I mean, again, if they end up trading Brandon Ayuk, then yeah, and you could get Tyler Boyd for a cheaper price, then I guess maybe that makes sense. But if you're bringing in Tyler Boyd and you're having problems trying to negotiate a contract with Brandon Ayuk, because I don't know if they should do that. You got the Dolphins, who I guess are looking for like that third option to go along with Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. I mean, that would be a good offense to be a part of. The Chargers are a team that really needs a wide receiver. That really needs wide receiver help. Now, they could be a team that they're probably going to draft one of these wide receivers in the first round. Because, I mean, they traded Keenan Allen, let go of Mike Williams. Yeah, they need some help on the offensive side of the ball to help out Justin Herbert. So that could be a potential fit for him. And then you got the Lions as well, who I think they're looking for that other wide receiver to have opposite of Amon-Ra St. Brown. Now, I've been saying, or I've said it previously on a show, I think they're really hoping for Jameson Williams to be that guy. Because, again, we saw the plays that he made. I mean, that play to open up the NFC Championship game, the end-around play. I mean, you see the game-breaking speed that he has, and the ability is there. It's just, we haven't seen that on a consistent basis yet. And, it's really, you got Amon-Ra St. Brown, and obviously Sam Laporta had a solid rookie season. The running back tandem of Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, you have that. But you want to see the Lions, they need another receiver, another playmaker on that side of the ball. And I think Tyler Boyd, as that number 2 receiver opposite of Amon-Ra St. Brown, I think that would be a good move for the Lions if he ended up going there. But again, what are Tyler Boyd's intentions? Does he want to get paid? Does he want to win? I have no idea. I think he wants both. But, I mean, if you want to win a championship, the best team to go to is the Kansas City Chiefs. Is definitely the Kansas City Chiefs. And, listen, Tyler Boyd has matched up against the Chiefs in some big games over the last few seasons, and maybe he's like, you know what? If they want me, I'm gonna go there. And the Chiefs just brought in Marquise Brown, so bringing in a couple of I know he played with the Cardinals, but bringing in a couple of former AFC North wide receivers over to your side, so that way when Mahomes matches up against Burrow and Lamar Jackson, he's gonna be like, hey, remember when you used to have these guys? Well, now they're playing for me. Yeah, I mean, Tyler Boyd's not like a game changer, but he's still a solid receiver. And I think, with the teams that they have listed, whether it's the Chiefs, the 49ers, the Dolphins, the Chargers, or the Lions, it's going to make a team better. I mean, it's not going to significantly move the needle. Well, for the Chiefs, I mean, they really don't have to move the needle. I mean, they're the defending champs of back-to-back years now. So it doesn't really matter. But, I mean, for the Chargers, I think out of the teams here, who desperately needs wide receiver help? The Chargers. The Chargers really need it. The Lions, they have Amon-Ra St. Brown. They have Sam Laporta. Like I said, the tandem at running back. I think the Lions, I'd probably put them second. Then, see, like for the Chiefs, they need wide receivers, but like, look at what they were able to do without elite wide receivers. They won the Super Bowl again. So I'm not going to say the Chiefs, and they just brought in Marquise Brown. So, and they're probably going to draft a receiver in this month's draft. So, I mean, the 49ers right now, I mean, depending on if they trade Ayuk, like if they trade Ayuk, then maybe you put them there. But the Dolphins, they got Tyreek Hill, they got Jalen Waddle, so, I don't think they really are desperate for a wide receiver. They're fine with what they got. I would say that the Chargers are probably the team that I think needs him the most. Just because, again, their wide receiver room is thin, but that's just me. So we'll see if he ends up signing with the team soon. But I think I think any of these spots you could look at the positives for them. I mean, you go play with Patrick Mahomes or Justin Herbert, the Lions and the 49ers, obviously two teams that made it to the championship game last year in the NFC. The Dolphins, you pair them up with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. But then again, it's kind of like the situation you have with the Bengals with T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. They're going to get the ball more than you. So I think that's the other thing, too, you got to factor in is he going to get the ball? And if you go to the Chargers, I mean, you're going to get the ball a lot, I think. I mean, the Chiefs, Mahomes likes to spread the ball around, but you'll be one of the top weapons. So, well, again, that all depends on, what happens with Rashee Rice. But, yeah, I'm curious as to why, it's kind of taken a little bit for him to sign with the team. Maybe I'm overvaluing him, but I feel like he's got to sign, or maybe he's just being patient. I don't know. This is Tyler Boyd. I'm not, this expert NFL insider that I got all the inside scoops on, what Tyler Boyd is thinking right now, but he's going to end up with the team. So it's just a matter of who that's going to be. But I think the Chargers is probably where you would get the most targets, just because, again, their wide receiver room is very thin. With the Lions, he could be that number 2 wide receiver to Amon-Ra St. Brown, because, again, they're still waiting for Jameson Williams to pop. And, again, like I said, you see flashes. But, that could be a good spot for him. The 49ers, the only way I see the 49ers bringing him in is if Ayuk ends up getting traded. That's the only way I see them bringing him in, because you're going to bring him in and then have Ayuk play under his, 5th-year option. And Ayuk might hold out. So, but again, they could do that just as a backup plan in case. Yeah, I mean, if they sign Ayuk to a long-term deal before the season, I mean, then Tyler Boyd is not going there. But I think they have tabs on Tyler Boyd just in case they end up moving off of Ayuk. And the Bengals aren't listed there. And like I said, if they ended up trading T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd is still there, then maybe you say, hey, we'll bring Tyler Boyd back. But I don't know. Interesting that the Steelers are a long shot. But again, like I said, not an expert NFL insider. So, I was like, oh, it makes sense. Stay within the division. Steelers need a receiver. There's your match. But I think these teams definitely, or some of them, are better spots than the Steelers are. Because I know the Chargers, their wide receiver room is thin, and they might not be very good in 2024. But I look at Justin Herbert as a top 10 quarterback. Should be in the top 5, but I don't know. I might be pushing that right now just because of how last year went. But I think when Justin Herbert, if Justin Herbert has a bounce back season, he's in the top 5. Talent wise, definitely in the top 5. But last year was kind of rough. And I know some people are kind of calling him a little overrated, but I think Justin Herbert's really good. So, and now that he's got Harbaugh there, they're going to head in the right direction because he wins wherever he goes. So, at least since I started watching football. So, I would have liked to have seen them keep Keenan Allen. That kind of surprised me a little bit, but I think they'll figure it out. So, but let me know what you guys think. Where do you think Tyler Boyd will eventually end up? I don't know, honestly, because I was like, oh, maybe the Steelers, but now you got all these other teams involved, and I'm like, yeah, some of those teams might be better spots for Boyd than the Steelers, but we'll see what happens. So when we come back from our final break of the show, team I talked about a little bit just now, and that's the Kansas City Chiefs. So they did bring back Clyde Edwards-Helaire, so we'll talk about that, as well as also another running back that's on the free agent market, and that is J.K.Dobbins and where he could potentially go, because he actually, did visit with the Chargers. I think he did visit with the Chargers, and he also did visit with the Chiefs, but we'll get into that as well when we come back from our final break. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final part of the show, we are going to talk about, we were going to talk about this here with the Chiefs and J.K.Dobbins and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. But, so we do have breaking news. And listen, we were supposed to add, now I'll be honest, I forgot to add this into the graphics and stuff, but we had this breaking news feature that we were adding in case something were to happen, and I have not added it into the stuff here on OBS. So we had a trade that just went down, and it's being reported that Stephon Diggs is being traded from the Buffalo Bills to the Houston Texans in exchange for a 2025 second-round pick. So it finally happened. It has finally happened. Stephon Diggs, after these last couple of off seasons, posting stuff on social media, and it's like, he's gonna stay with the Bills. But no, that's not the case. He is going to the Texans. And the Texans just got even better with Diggs. I mean, it's a shocker because I went to check my group chat during the break, and the first text I see from one of my friends is Diggs is pretty rapidly declining. And it's a good move for both teams. And I'm scrolling up because there's a bunch of texts. And, Diggs traded to the Texans. So this is something we'll talk about more. And, again, gives me something to talk about. But, yeah, I got to add that breaking news feature in because I thought the NFL offseason kind of slowed down, so I was like, there's nothing really gonna break while I'm talking here. But yeah, it ended up happening. We had a big trade go down, Diggs going to the Texans. So you pair him up now. Well, first you pair him up with C.J. Stroud, but now they got a nice trio of wide receivers and a solid tight end. You got Diggs, you got Tank Dell, and Nico Collins. They also traded for Joe Mixon. You got Dalton Schultz. So, gotta love the Texans right now. Gotta love what they're doing. So this is something we will touch upon more tomorrow. But that's big. That's big for the Texans. And now, we'll get into what that means for the Bills. That is something that we'll discuss all of that tomorrow. But that is just breaking news right there. I wish I could. I mean, I could add it in right now, but actually, to be honest, I don't even know where it is because we got emailed the breaking news thing, and like I said, I've been meaning to add it in, but I don't have it in right now. So tomorrow, when we open up the show, I will have it in and I'll display it on the screen. So that's it's big though. That is definitely big. So anyways, let's get back to something that's less exciting, and that's talking about a couple of running back stuff. So the Chiefs, you go from that to talking about the Chiefs bringing back Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So they bring back Clyde Edwards-Helaire on a 1-year contract. The Chiefs. He was a first-round pick back in the 2020 NFL Draft. He had high expectations, and hasn't really lived up to those expectations. And they drafted Isaiah Pacheco in the late rounds, in the 2022 draft, and he's kind of been their lead back. And Edwards-Helaire, he's the backup to Pacheco essentially. Now, I was going to talk about how J.K.Dobbins, he visited with the Chiefs, and how, that maybe, he's coming off of a Achilles injury himself, but, he comes in is that backup to Pacheco, on a cheap deal. That'd be, I don't think that'd be a bad deal. But then when the Chiefs brought back Edwards-Helaire, that basically ended, any chance that Dobbins could sign with the Chiefs. I mean, we'll see. They also signed a rugby player, too. So, yeah, Dobbins might have to look elsewhere. Like I said, Dobbins is coming off of an Achilles injury. He did visit with the Chargers. I know I did talk about that. Dobbins was cleared for football activities by Dr. Neil Elatrash, with teams receiving positive reviews on his recovery. Throughout his career, Dobbins has been hampered by injuries, missing the entire 2021 season. That was when he tore his ACL, I believe, and has been playing in limited games in other seasons. And again, last year, torn Achilles, out for the year. In his rookie season, he had played in 15 games, had 9 touchdowns, 805 yards. Yeah, it looked like he was going to be a solid player for them, but just has not been able to stay on the field. So we'll see where he ends up. I mean, listen, Dallas needs a running back. But we'll see what happens. But I know, like I said, the Chargers, he did visit with them. And it was funny because, again, like I said, I was talking to my coworker who's a Ravens fan, and he said that, I was like, he'll reunite with Gus Edwards. And he's like, yeah, he'll also be reuniting with Greg Roman, who he didn't like because Greg Roman wasn't giving him the ball. Who's the offensive coordinator with the Ravens. So we'll see what happens. But, yeah. Again, I don't want to spend too much on the Diggs stuff just because I kind of want to leave it to tomorrow. But, I mean, that's crazy that ended up happening. But again, I don't have the breaking news thing. I mean, I could try to pull it up. I don't know. I don't want to risk like ending the stream by accident. But I could see. Well, I mean, let's see if we could drag it in live on the stream here. Let's see if we could do that. Well, actually, I think it's glitching out my camera. So you know what? I don't know if I want to do that. We'll try to find it. I know I could already see it already. Let's see. I apologize for this in advance, guys, but it's just oh God, I don't know what's happening. My email keeps opening up. I don't want that. But yeah, I mean, again, love the move for the Texans. Okay, wait, I see it right here. So it was sent on. Yeah, see, this is how bad I am. This was sent on March 21st, and I never sent it out. Or I never set it up. So that's on me, guys. So I apologize for that. All right, so this is the link. So let's see. I don't know. Am I gonna be able to do it? I have no idea. All right, so I'm gonna X out of my email. I don't want to accidentally X out of the stream. Yeah, you could already see there's like a. Yeah. Okay, so let's see. So we're gonna add a scene live. All right, I'm not gonna do that while I'm on, because now it just like brought me to the scene, so that's why the show went faded to black there. All right, so I'm gonna have to set that up afterwards. I thought I could do it while I'm on the show, but I guess not. Actually, let me see. You know what? Yeah, I'm just gonna wait till the end of the show. But we'll have it in tomorrow. We'll have it in tomorrow. I know I keep saying that, but yeah, that I mean, it makes the Texans better. It makes the Texans better, and like I said, you're pairing them up with a couple of up and coming young receivers, good tight end, a young quarterback that is going to be even better in year 2, especially now you're getting Stephon Diggs. But I mean, the other angle to it is, what does that mean for the Bills? Because for a while, I mean, when the Bills got Stephon Diggs, I mean, that just took Josh Allen to new heights. And now that he's gone, like, what does that mean for Josh Allen? Is Josh Allen going to revert back to how he was, his first couple of seasons in the NFL? I mean, he's been turning the ball over more. I'm curious to see how that's all going to play out. But yeah, so again, we'll talk. That's going to be how we open the show tomorrow. We're gonna dive into that and discuss it some more. I kind of wish that it happened before my show, because then I could have made a quick tweak and we could have discussed it. But it happens at the end of the show, where I'm talking about the Chiefs bringing back Edwards-Helaire and J.K.Dobbins. But now, what does that mean for the Texans in the AFC? Well, I mean, this trade, like I said, makes them better. I mean, they got to be the odds-on favorites to win the division still. I mean, you look at Jacksonville, they lost Calvin Ridley. They got a little bit worse on the offensive side of the ball. Also, they collapsed at the end, kind of. Not as bad as the Eagles, but they collapsed. The Titans, we'll see how Will Levis plays in year 2. The Colts, I mean, they're gonna be competitive as well, but I don't know. I mean, you got to like the Texans' offense the best out of everybody else in the division. So I'm really excited, for them. This is a good move for them, and in the grand scheme of things, obviously, you got the Chiefs, who are always going to be there. The Ravens, the Bengals. I mean, the NFC or the AFC East. I mean, it's kind of open for who could take that division, because now the Bills lost Stephon Diggs after a lot of pieces that they've lost that they've had to release because of cap space. I mean, and then the Dolphins with their question marks, and the Jets with their question marks if their team stays healthy. AFC East is wide open. So we'll see. Like I said, I am going to talk about this Stephon Diggs stuff tomorrow. But wow. Just when you thought it was over, something else happens. So again, that's a solid move for the Texans. You gotta love it. Gotta love what the Texans are doing. They are building something really special there. And also, I talked about the Texans in the beginning of the show. With the Deshaun Watson trade. Yeah, really gotta like what they're doing. So I will talk about that tomorrow. I apologize if this segment wasn't very. Again, I was trying to set up the breaking news thing, and then then my screen faded to black because I was setting up that scene. But I'm just gonna have to do it off the air. So, but yeah, that's pretty much it for the show for today. Thank you guys for tuning in. Like I said, we'll talk about this Stefon Diggs stuff more tomorrow. We'll get into that. And, obviously have other things to discuss as well. Yeah, that's pretty much it for me. Again, make sure to leave a comment on some of the stuff that we discussed today. Yeah, like I said, we'll be back again tomorrow. Tomorrow's already Thursday. Can't believe it. But that's how fast time goes. So, yeah, with that is all the time that we have for today. Once again, thank you guys for tuning in. Back again tomorrow. Like I said, same time, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And until then, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, signing off from the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit.